It's at that moment there's a loud thump, and it's the sound of an airstrike close. You can feel the shockwave moving through the city, and I'm just looking at this huge plume of smoke coming up. You start to think, right, when do you need to stop the reporting and start the kind of surviving and driving at 100, 120 kilometers an hour through this hellscape? It's like this blur of mangled buildings flying past the windows. And my colleague turns to me and he says, you know, I think this is the war that I'm going to die in. My name's Oliver Marsden and I'm a foreign correspondent based in the Middle East. I'm just trying to get out as fast as we can because these airstrikes are still happening and I don't know where the next airstrike is going to hit. Is this the day I die? I am heading to the city of Nabatieh, which is the second largest city in southern Lebanon, and I'm reporting on Israeli airstrikes that happened yesterday, and it kills 16 people. You have this weird mixture of being excited and nervous, this sort of trepidation about the day's reporting ahead. The sun's coming up, and as soon as I step out on my balcony, there's this smell of cordite and kind of gunpowder that's just hanging in the air in Beirut. The war between Israel and Hezbollah had been heating up throughout 2024. There'd been this slow escalation of airstrikes and rocket fire, drone strikes. And then that came to a bit of a head in September when Israel blew up lots of booby-trapped pagers and walkie-talkies that belonged to Hezbollah. It just ratcheted up. You know, every day there were airstrikes across the south of Lebanon, and Hezbollah in turn was firing rockets and drones back into northern Israel, and it sort of had come to this kind of crescendo in the middle of October 2024. I get my cameras sorted, I get my body armor, my helmet, I check my medical kit. You do these things to make yourself feel less nervous. But there is that kind of feeling in the back of your brain, wow, this is another day out on the road, somewhere very dangerous. Is this the day I die? So that day I was with my friend Nabatieh, and we jump in his car, throw the body armor in the back, and we're just, you know, bombing along the highway, trying to get there as soon as possible. Once you get a bit closer to the dangerous area, you stop and you take a moment, you think about where you're going to be going, where the exits kind of are, in the sense of like how do you drive out of the city as quickly as possible. You check your gear. I am looking through my camera lens, getting all the settings right so that if I need to take a picture quickly I can, checking the light. And then suddenly this man comes running into like the viewfinder, into my frame, and he pulls his gun out and he's pointing it right at me and he's shouting. And I was thinking like, oh, fuck, what now? And he keeps asking like, who are you, what are you doing, why are you filming me, why are you taking photos of me? I'm scared because at that point in Lebanon, you know, in October, there's a lot of paranoia around, there's a lot of fear, these airstrikes are happening every day. And Hezbollah itself has been really infiltrated, and so everyone is paranoid. And I'm thinking, great, I've already got a gun pointed at my head, I'm about to be shot, and the day hasn't even started yet. We defuse the situation and we get on the road. And so now we're driving up this hill, kind of into the hills of southern Lebanon towards the city of Nabatieh. But also at this moment, you know that there are Israeli drones above your head all the time. You can hear this, there's this constant like buzzing, this all the time. It's making me nervous because I know they're watching, they're there, they're right above us, and it's so loud. What's to stop them striking us that day? How do they know who we are? And so to combat that, my friend and I, we get some yellow gaffer tape and we tape TV to the roof and to the bonnet just to show them that we're press. That doesn't necessarily guarantee your safety. This conflict in Lebanon and obviously in Gaza, more journalists have died than in any other conflict previously. And unfortunately, on Friday the 13th of October 2023, some friends of mine and colleagues, they were in southern Lebanon and they were filming Israeli airstrikes on Hezbollah positions and Hezbollah firing rockets back. They've got their press vests on, they have big signs saying press, they've got their helmets, and then suddenly out of nowhere there's this huge explosion and one tank shell comes flying in and hits this group of journalists that are just doing their job. They scatter, and one of my friends, he gets completely covered in shrapnel, and his colleague, a young girl named Christina, who's a photojournalist, she's been hit by shrapnel, and at this point her legs have been completely cut up and destroyed. And he's kneeling down, he's getting a tourniquet, he's putting it onto her leg, and then boom, a second tank shell comes flying in, and it kills one of our colleagues named Issam Abdullah, who works for Reuters. It does fill you with a certain sense of trepidation. You know, I remember seeing Christina in a wheelchair with one of her legs missing. I remember seeing my best friend with a bandage around his head, covered in blood, like on the phone, wide-eyed. And some of these images stick with you as you're trying to do your job in the field. So I'm sitting there in the car, remembering this, hearing the drones above me right now, thinking, does it matter? Have we done enough? Like, what's to stop us being hit at this moment? So I'm thinking that, and I'm trying to put the horrors of the past, you know, into the back of my head and move forward. And then, you know, I'm driving at 100, 120 kilometers an hour through this sort of hellscape. I'm looking left and right, and there are just like completely destroyed buildings, like lining the way into this city on either side. And then I arrive in the center of Nabatieh.
Currently at a strike site here in Nabatieh.
And the first thing I'm struck with is actually the silence. Because this is Lebanon's sort of second largest city in the south, and it's a ghost town. There's no one there. I can hear cats meowing because they've just been abandoned and they're looking for food. It's almost like a kind of zombie movie, and it's a really kind of eerie feeling at that point.
The debris has gone very far.
The day before, this building close to the civil defense headquarters was hit with an Israeli airstrike, and in that airstrike, it killed one of the civil defense workers.
You see the red fire truck there?
I look down and there's this puddle of blood in front of me. The blood from the civil defense worker who was killed, it's mixing with the water from the damaged fire truck. This civilian area, it's just rubble. There's smoke still coming out of it.
The minaret. The mosque is still standing, but everything is coated in a layer of grey ash.
I see family photos in the rubble. I see curtains. I see bits of a life that have been completely destroyed. You see that flash of colour, which could be a kid's teddy bear, and it's just kind of destruction all around. We're walking around, and then suddenly there is this strike nearby. It's like behind the buildings we're standing next to, and it's what we call a tap, and it's when the Israelis have fired a small rocket from a drone or a small missile, and it's landed nearby, and it's just to let you know that they know you're there, they're watching you, and that you need to move on, you need to keep moving. They could do anything they want at this moment. And given what had happened to my friends and colleagues before, it's quite a nerve-wracking moment. Get out of here or we'll kill you. And at that point, we're like, right, we need to keep moving. We're back in the car and we're driving really fast through the center of Nabatieh because these airstrikes are still happening around us and in villages nearby. And we get to the local hospital. You have this view across the city, and you can see these plumes of smoke coming up, and there are ambulance workers watching these airstrikes happening. It's at that moment there's a loud like thump, and it's the sound of an airstrike close. You can feel the shockwave from the distance, like moving through the city. And I'm just looking at this huge plume of smoke coming up, and there are ambulances arriving, their sirens are going off, paramedics are jumping into ambulances to like go and rescue people. you start to think, right, when do you need to stop the reporting and start the kind of surviving? So we then jump back in the car. And I'm thinking, like, I've got to get out of here. I've got to drive pretty close to where that strike just happened. Is there going to be another strike while I'm in the car trying to get out of here? And we're just trying to get out as fast as we can because these airstrikes are still happening and I don't know where the next airstrike is going to hit. And as we're driving really fast, this statistic keeps going round in my head that actually most journalists die in a conflict zone in a car crash because they're trying to get out really quick, which is what I'm doing. And this destruction, there's so much of it that it all starts to kind of blend into one. It's like this blur of mangled buildings flying past the windows. And my colleague, he turns to me and he says, you know, I think this is the war that I'm going to die in. I just have this feeling. And I think, right, I really don't want to die in this war. And that fear and that adrenaline, it all sort of comes together in that moment and you suddenly kind of quite aware of your own mortality. And I'm thinking about this just as we drive out of Nabatieh and we go over the crest of this hill and then I can see the Mediterranean in front of me, I can see the sea. And it's calming and it's telling me we're getting away from the conflict zone. And I take that first big, deep breath. And there's just that moment of like, oh, like I'm home. I go for the drinks trolley and I get a stiff whiskey and I just sit on the sofa and kind of relaxed and I'm drinking my whiskey and then kind of thinking like, I've made it through another day, and what's going to happen tomorrow? Days like today can feel precarious. I sometimes think that there's that sliding doors moment where one decision or one wrong turn or one extra minute in a certain place can change the whole outcome of the day. But I believe in the power of being there on the ground, especially in this day and age, this feeling of fake news, of AI, of people being able to say what they want on social media. I need to be there telling people what's happening, telling the truth, and telling these stories of the people that are affected in a conflict zone with so much out of their control. I believe in the power of storytelling and I believe that I have a responsibility to tell those stories despite the danger.